It's time to wake up with Dr. Cheryl.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. And welcome all my audience here. And welcome Dr. Gary Salyer. Let's see, you've been here, this is the third, fourth time, because those other two were...
Oh, yes, that's right.
There were
yes, that's right.
two segments, two
Oh,
episodes in
that's right.
one. So, but you finished your book, Safe to Love Again. And I have read almost all of it. I didn't read quite to the end. And then I thought, I have lots of questions for you.
Well, good. I like questions.
As well as the audience. We will have a Q&A at the end, about the last 10 minutes. So, Gary, I know you have your PhD in psychology. Mm-hmm. So tell us a little bit about yourself, and before we get going, about Safe to Love Again.
Well, I wrote this book because I began to see in my clients, it's like an epidemic of hopelessness. And really feeling unworthy. It's like we have an entire generation that's being told you're not enough. Yeah, you don't have enough categories on Match to select you, or you get ghosted and then you feel you're not enough. So
is that like across what ages are you talking about?
All ages.
Across? I mean, even millennials?
Oh, yes.
Oh, wow, probably even more so.
After about the fifth time you've been ghosted, there's a voice that goes, what am I, chopped liver? And that voice sort of sits in us. And then we start asking, well, what's wrong with me? Am I just not enough? What do I need to do? Who do I need to become?
Can you explain ghosted?
Ghosted. Ghosted is when somebody takes off from a relationship without notice. Okay. You go out on a date a couple of times and suddenly you can't reach them. There's no phone contact. There's no text contact. It's like you don't exist.
Ugh.
And it's
amazing.
It's the worst thing you can do to somebody's attachment.
The other day I saw a friend of mine on Facebook, and she said, you know what? People just are treating you like you're disposable.
Exactly.
And that's horrible. They're not engaged with their heart.
No, they're not.
So, anyway, I know you've been on this track for quite a while.
I have.
And you've worked really hard to get this book out. And there's so much information in here that the first thing that I thought would be good to start with is the rights to love.
Okay. So you want me to go over them?
Yes.
Okay. So what I argue is that from 0 to 3, this thing that we call love, how we are wired to love and be loved, that we actually get, rights to be fully loved or not between 0 and 3. And yes, later relationships can affect it, but the primary templates, the permission slips for love, are all laid down in 0 to 3. And you get a right to exist, which means you get to be fully in your body and fully connected.
Didn't T. Barry Brazelton say that the first 3 years are the most important in your life?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Yeah, it's also when your right brain is developing the most, your emotional brain. So it's not an accident the first 3 years.
Right.
Then you're given a right to have your needs met. It means it's okay to reach out, to have your needs met, to ask for your needs, and it's okay to bring it in and to receive it. There's something also called a right to separate and belong. And separate, belong is like when the toddler gets out and starts walking around and says, oh my God, that's them, that's me. And they realize they're me. But they know they need supervision. They know they need a protective, empowering sheath called love, also called parents. So they get to be a me in an empowering way, not just a me or just a we. Then there's a right to create your own experience, which means you get to be fully human. You get to be good and bad, strong and weak, you're kind and loving. You get the right to assert your voice with choice and to have your victories in life, to really choose what you want, not what you don't want. And love. And then the last one is a full right to love and be loved. When those other ones are put online, then it's okay to love and be loved back, not split. Not like I have more right to love than to be loved, or more right to be loved than to love. And when you get all 6 of those, then you have all of the high cards, so to speak, in your deck for love.
And probably not too many people have all that in one.
Probably not. Most,
I mean,
yes.
How we're raised from our parents, which don't have, mostly, generally speaking, they don't have the tools to heal themselves.
No.
I know my mother didn't, but, you know,
Yeah.
they do the best they can. So it's up to us. The one thing I learned is about parenting yourself.
Yes.
I don't know
Yes.
if you talk about that at all.
Well, we can parent ourselves, and it's also okay to have all that parental support come to us, and not in a parental way, but to have it in a relationship, because nobody is self-actualizing by themselves. We need a village of support to really recreate and to have a secure love style. And that's one of the biggest things that I've learned, is that we really need a community. That's one of the things I'd like to do, is start a movement here based on these, you know, I talk about these 4 feelings, right? And imagine if we created a movement where everybody gave each other these 4 feelings that tell us love. And those 4 feelings are, what if we made everybody feel welcome with joy, worthy and nourished, cherished and protected and empowered with choice? If we could train ourselves to give those in most every interaction we have, we could change the world.
Do you think, though, that does start with yourself?
Oh,
You've got to be able to do that with yourself first.
Yes.
To be able to
Yes.
nurture others in that same.
You have to have the feelings within you. If you don't feel welcome with joy and you don't have it in your heart, so you know you have a right to feel welcome, it's very hard giving it. If you don't feel worthy, it's hard to make someone else feel worthy. So yes, we have to have what I call these reference feelings up and running in us, so that we know what the good stuff is we want to give to everybody we care and love about.
Right. So if you're aware of those missing rights, and you do get it, like with a partner, then basically you have the ingredients to have a healthy love.
Exactly. This was meant to be a new GPS for love. I think we have a generation without a GPS for love. We don't know what real love is anymore. And I wrote this so people could understand the roadmap for what's going on in our relationship. Oh, I'm not feeling empowered, or I don't feel worthy. That's what we can fix. That's what we need. Now we can talk about what is really the issue, why we're sitting on opposite ends of the couch. It's not because the TV is so engrossing. It's because one or the other doesn't, maybe one doesn't feel worthy and the other doesn't feel empowered. Yeah.
Yes.
Then they can fix it.
Yeah, as long as they can be aware of it and talk
Yes.
about it.
Yes, that's all. That's
Talk-
when I work
talking
with
about
couples, yes, that's a whole different issue. But just being aware of what it is that makes us feel loved and loving is hugely important.
And then, you know, the next thing for, you know, that I know you and I discussed a little bit earlier was deserving, being
Yes.
deserving of love and giving love.
Absolutely. You know, a few months ago, no, about a year ago, I guess it was, a woman who was 75 called me and said, you know, I'm lonely, and I want to find a soulmate, but I don't think I deserve to have love. And so when we worked, we went back and found the exact moment that the little one decided I wasn't worthy.
Had she been married before?
She has never been married.
Oh, wow.
She
75.
felt so unworthy that she had never really had a long-term intimate relationship.
Wow, yeah.
And it was in our second session together, she goes, the first session she goes, no, I don't want to have to get married now, right? And that's okay. I said, okay, no, we're just talking about love now. And the second session she goes, after we worked on worthiness and getting the feeling inside of her, she says, could it be that I've never been married because I never felt worthy of love? So, flash
The
forward.
light went off.
The light went off.
In her.
Exactly.
And, wow.
Flash forward, she goes, no, man, I'm too old. No man will ever have me, blah, blah, blah. So, amazing, surprisingly,
I
she
hope
went
she
on
found one that was about at least 10, 15 years younger.
He was about 6 or 7.
Oh, okay.
And I get this text about 2 months into our work together, and she goes, we're up in Napa, we're having fun. You know, that's the difference between feeling worthy and unworthy. When you feel unworthy, in order to protect yourself from all that pain, your brain will delete every possibility. so that you won't ever feel rejected. People will say they're hopeless. There's no possibilities, but what they're really saying is, I'm trying to protect myself from feeling not enough. Yeah. So hopelessness, what's underneath that is not feeling worthy. If you want to fix hopelessness, work on the feeling of not enough or not worthy. That's what fixes the hopelessness.
Well, well, well. So how do you do that? Like you've got to do that for yourself first.
Yeah.
But like that woman, the light went off.
Yes.
So what did she actually do to help herself feel worthy?
Well, it's hard to give yourself back those feelings just by yourself. There are things I do with clients. It does take one-on-one work. Somebody has to know how to go back and add this feeling to that part of you that says, no, I learned I wasn't worthy. It's a little bit technical for a show like this, but you have to go in and find the exact moment with an expert that knows how to do this.
Right, exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
That the little one decided, oh, wait a minute, I'm not worthy. I'm not worthy. And then to be able to allow the brain to be safe with feeling worthy, because the brain will never take off the menu something just to be evil. Like, for instance, one woman that didn't feel worthy. Her mother and father divorced. And when she was 9 years old, her father and her were walking down the street. And she said, Daddy, can I have an ice cream cone? And he grabbed a wad of $100 bills and said, this is what you cost me every month.
Ooh.
And that was when it was not safe to feel worthy. I'm not worthy.
Well,
it's not safe to reach out for my. And she never did again until we started working again.
Yeah.
Now, it wasn't safe to feel. So we had to go back on that moment and really help that little one realize that she had a right, whether her father had a grievance against mom or not.
Right.
Yeah. So,
Well, see, I think it's important to be able to share this.
Yeah.
To give an example, because anybody can heal themselves.
Yeah.
If they really want to.
Yeah. And yes, we can heal ourselves, and part of the wisdom is reaching out for the help and
feeling safe and trust.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's why the book is called Safe to Love Again. It's not want to love again.
Yeah.
We
safe.
all want love, but it's being safe.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's being with the right people.
Yes.
In the right community and the right family.
It's absolutely the case.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so hopelessness versus faith-filled.
Faith-filled?
Faith-filled.
Faith-filled.
Yeah. Faith.
Yep.
Having faith. Instead of being hopeless, being faith. Having faith that you will be partnered.
Exactly. It's a matter of the universe is not, it's neither rewarding nor is it punishing. The universe is mirroring us. So the more we have these four feelings, we of us cannot trust being welcomed, feeling worthy, feeling cherished, feeling empowered. I guarantee you, if someone gives you those four feelings and you have them inside of that, then you feel differently about the universe. And the universe shows up way differently. When you give them, the universe mirrors it. So, that's how the law of attraction really works. It sets up an energy field of where we are safe and we feel safe in the world. It doesn't mean there may be some situations that don't call for something. But generally speaking, we know the world is a cozy, warm oyster that's been here for us. And if you think about it.
Well, in your own nucleus,
Yes.
I think it's important to feel, to have that. But I look what's going on out there in the world, and it's just appalling. It's I can't believe how many people are starving.
Yes.
Starving. I mean, not necessarily for food, but for love. I mean, that's where it's all coming from, is the lack of love.
Oh, there's
Starting at the top.
starting at the top.
We won't get into politics.
Starting at the top.
But,
Yes.
it's like, okay, well, if you're not willing to look at that and try to help heal it, then, how is it going to change?
It's why I argue that, what we're looking at the experts call it a secure attachment. I call it a love style. A secure love style is comfortable loving and being loved, depending and being depended on. And when that isn't available, we either opt to be anxious, we're trying to lock it down, we're wondering when does love go away, and we tend to get into
fear
drama.
of abandonment.
Fear of abandonment. Or we say, it's like the scene at the end of Gone with the Wind when, and we say to love, frankly, my dear.
Oh, don't give a damn.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so that's when people, they use the wall. They're a little distant. I'm going to be a little leery. And if you kind of notice it, even from this country is having a little bit of an anxious moment because things aren't so secure.
Yeah.
This is how we all react when we are not filled with welcomed, worthy, cherished, and that feeling of empowered. We feel disempowered today. We don't feel cherished, we don't feel welcomed, and we sure don't feel worthy.
Well, one good thing in my interpretation for this happening from what you just said was it's actually a good way for people to reflect on themselves.
Yes.
And build that internal love, joy, faith-filled, etc.
Yeah.
I think that this is a perfect opportunity for we the people to do that.
As I argued in the last chapter, I talked about the soundtrack and the soul lesson. The soundtrack refers to whatever feelings we have there, whether we have welcomed or unwelcomed running in our soul, or worthy and unworthy. And whenever we have some negative feeling that's not one of the secure ones, that's our soul lesson. So so for me, when I was born, my mother was so looking for a girl that she had 6 months of, I wore pink for the first 6 months, according to my Aunt Evelyn, and she was so disappointed that she refused to name me until the state of Ohio sent out some state troopers for 3 weeks. I was not named, and the state trooper, she says, I'm not going to name him. And the state trooper said, well, if you don't sign this with a name, we're going to take you someplace where you can think about it a while. And
well, that's one way to take care of it. Hey.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I was not exactly welcomed with joy, not exactly worthy and nourished. So all of that became my soul lesson. And my greatest soul lesson is in here. I signed up to learn the lesson about how to be safe to love again, so I could serve humanity. I signed up for that. So whatever our lesson is, whether we've disempowered, if we feel disempowered, then our soul came to learn empowerment. If you're unworthy, then you came to learn what worthy is. So whatever is the opposite is what your soul wants you to feel most of all.
And this is interesting because I don't know if I've ever shared this with you, but I was an RH baby.
Oh.
So, and I don't know if most people don't know what that means, because now they have a serum, an anti-serum for a mother that has RH factor negative.
Yes.
But when I was born, after the second child, when they cut the cord, my blood was dying because of chemical reaction. So they had to take me and transfuse my blood. And I know that's affected me for life.
Yes.
I'm a fighter. I'm a survivor.
Yes.
Thriver, survivor. And I'm just wondering, I know that connection with my father was like this. My mother, not as much, but then she had her issues and she didn't know how to love herself. That's why I think one of my missions or soul things is unconditional love.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't even know what that means.
No.
I mean, I've had people say to me, I don't believe it. I don't believe there's unconditional love. Well, anyway, maybe that's for another show.
Yeah.
Because that's not part of part of your thing. But for me, it's very important for loving unconditionally.
It is. There are some conditions, I think. We want, I argue that we need, if
Healthy boundaries.
has to be healthy. That's right.
Healthy boundaries. I mean, that's what I say. Healthy boundaries.
Yes.
For everyone. Anyway.
But we can certainly learn to love each other better. I try to practice these 4 feelings with everybody I meet.
Yeah, and I truly love those 4 feelings, you know. So tell me, explain how you find your soul connection.
Okay, to ourselves or to someone else? Ourselves or to
You know,
ourselves?
you talk about soulmate,
Yes, okay.
and you know, I was compelled to ask you about what you really mean by that.
A
What
soul
what is a soulmate, and how do you
Okay.
attain that? And you know,
Yes. Well, you know, there's 2 ways. Some people look at soulmates as, you know, there's one person out there out of 7 billion people. Sorry about that.
there's water there.
Yeah. And I don't think there's just one.
Yeah,
I think soulmates are created.
created.
I think we create them in relationships. And what we do, and the more, I mean, soulmate connections are what comes when we really love each other. Stuff like that.
But don't you think there's also like an innate feeling that you have with somebody else that you can't necessarily put into words? You know, there's just this connection that's
can be.
invisible, you know, sort of. I'm sorry,
I do
Karen.
believe. I've heard different stories about this. If you talk to somebody like John Gray, that story is so compelling between him and how he met Bonnie.
Right, right.
That it does seem like the cosmic tumblers were loaded for these 2 people to meet. But then you hear other people, I was just working with a couple, and for 17 years they struggled. They wanted to be soulmates, and they had a certain close connection, but there was a lot of disconnect too. But when they learned to create a real we between them, and not just 2 me's, studying Tony Robbins and every other transformational guru on the planet, what they came to me saying, we studied all these transformational gurus and we worked on ourselves and we thought it would give us a better relationship, and it didn't.
Yeah.
Now, when they learned how to create a true we, and they learned how to trust each other in new ways and to give each other these feelings, now they talk about being soulmates. They created that. Now, I think they chose each other for some big lessons.
Yeah, and you may not be aware of it initially,
Yes.
but it grows.
But I'm more the idea that relationships are a combination of little moments often, little tiny moments of choices to turn toward or to not to turn toward, to attune or not to tune, to seek their interest, and to share our vulnerabilities and our realities. When we do that, that opens up both souls, and then we have a soul connection. Now, so I think there's some people that were destined, and I think for probably a lot of people, it's an option if we choose to create a better relationship with each other.
So, Ian, you would say that's a soul connection?
I would. Yeah, I think there's a higher self that's involved in all relationships. Whether we access it or not, that's a whole different thing. Right. But there's always a higher self connection. And the more we can step into our higher selves, if we can allow our souls to lead us, our soul is never going to say, you know, make sure you say an unkind word to them today. It never does things like that.
Well, I wish our society would teach more of that. We were not taught.
No, we weren't.
You know, I mean, maybe in some churches and so forth, communities that you're involved with, focus more on that. But out there in the general race consciousness, it's not taught. And so it's not supported, you know, and it takes some education and some learning and experiencing to really embrace it, I believe.
I'm certain of it. When I work with couples, I know that there's been a lot of dysfunctional moves that we learned is how, like a harsh startup with each other. You see that all the time. Sometimes it's supposed to be funny on television, but it's deadly in relationships. When people start off with a harsh way of talking to each other, thinking, I'm going to let you know my truth, and let me give it to you at first. And if I can just be harsh enough, they just might turn toward me and listen. Well, that works 4% of the time, according to couples research.
Yeah.
We live in
respect and kindness.
That's right.
Yeah.
We don't live in a society that values relationships.
No, I know, and it's sad to me.
Yeah.
But we can change that.
We can, because we have a right to. These are God-given
And we
emotions.
deserve it.
We deserve it. It's absolutely right.
We deserve it
We
at
deserve
all
it.
times, you know.
If we weren't deserving, why would there be the air just be so perfect for our bodies? Why is there so much water? I mean, the sun is shining. The earth treats us so worthily. We were created.
And it's man that's destroying it.
W-
Sorry,
yes.
won't go there, but
Yes. Probably because we don't, there's a lot of
see,
people
love,
that
it's
don't
lack
feel.
of love,
Exactly.
not feeling the deserving love. It's an epidemic.
It is, but it's also fixable.
Yes, yes.
Yes.
So you think that you really, I mean, you've explained different levels of soulmate,
Yeah.
soul connection, but I haven't heard quite the interpretation of creating with another person that,
Okay.
you know.
Okay. So my definition of a soulmate. There's, when I work with couples, sometimes I get a couple that just wants a better relationship. And it's actually not my job to tell them, oh, you have to be soulmates.
Oh, yeah.
It's just not. So there are good enough marriages. But, and that's one contract. And kind of the contract that is unexpressed when people are having a good enough marriage, and they do love each other and it's a good relationship, is, did I screw up today? Did I do okay today? That's not a soulmate contract. A soulmate contract is a whole other pay grade. Soulmate contract is, did I bring out the very best in my beloved today? Not B plus, not A minus, but today, did I bring out the very best in each? And soulmates have this contract to be the uplifting wind under each other's wings, so that they become the safety net under the high wire aspirations of each other's lives. It's about bringing out the best. So everything about a soulmate contract is about bringing out that best self. Now that might be somebody that wants to write a book, or it might be somebody that wants to have, a TV career. It could be someone who wants to be the very best mother. It could be somebody who wants to be the very best father. Whatever that big purpose is, and there's all sorts of them out there. Not all of them go on TV, right? But the soulmate connection is when you see two soulmates, they are down for each other. I was working with one couple,
Committed.
and they were a secure couple already. They were dealing with some legal issues. Mm-hmm. And the attorney...
Financial and legal can really put a
Yes.
damper.
And what was really interesting, the attorney called and she goes, I gotta take this. So she takes this phone call in the middle of the session. They're sitting on the couch right there.
Oh, so she's an attorney, it's your client.
No, she's not an attorney.
Oh,
she
oh.
takes the call from an attorney
Oh,
about this court case.
Oh, okay.
Then she gets off and we talk about it for 5 minutes. And what was really interesting was this. She goes, but we're a team. And she goes, because if you're going to come after us, we're going to get in the foxhole together. And they both turned at the same time like they're in the foxhole. And it's guns blazing. They said they were going to have each other's back.
Okay.
And they were so orchestrated, they both did it at the same time. And whether we like the metaphor or not, the point was, it wasn't just one, it was mostly her legal issues, but he was in that foxhole with her. You're in that foxhole, I'm in that foxhole.
Was it a married couple?
Yeah, they were.
Yeah.
And he was constantly coming, what do you need today, honey, to get through this? That is a soulmate relationship. And when she looked at him, she was always about, what do you need today? They were always there in service of each other's highest self. If you want to know what a soulmate is, that's what a soulmate is. Being in service of each other's highest self,
absolutely.
To protect, to cherish.
Committed to that relationship on
Yeah.
that level.
Yeah. It's the ultimate form of being cherished.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So please tell us your 4 wonderful thoughts about relationship. Again, I love hearing it, but I like to hear it from somebody else. I've said it so many times in, reading your book.
Okay, my 4 wonderful thoughts?
Yes.
Okay, which thoughts are those? There were quite a few in
Well,
there.
no, the ones about being cherished and
The 4
welcoming
feelings?
with joy.
When you have these rights, your brain uses 4 feelings as reference feelings for how to navigate the world and all relationships. The first feeling that we know we're loved, is when we feel welcome with joy. Welcome with joy is when you wake up in the morning and you hear your beloved say, "Good morning, gorgeous." Or when you come in at night and you say, and you hear those words, "Honey, it looks like you had a long day. Come over here and get a big hug." Well, and then the next one is worthy and nourished.
Yeah.
It's okay to reach out for my needs. And you know that they're going to reach back. They're actively making a catalog
And
of
that's
your
the
patterns.
secure love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Patterns and preferences. And they know what you need ahead of time. They're making an interior map. Oh, this is, I know my beloved likes a macchiato caramel skinny thing, or whatever. And far more. Cherished and protected is that beautiful feeling that you have a home port in somebody's heart. So after a long day, they're going to want to listen to what your day was like.
I like what you just said about the home port in your heart.
Yeah.
Because I think, today, or I feel today, that so many people are not connected to their heart
Yeah.
when it comes to relationships or with themselves.
Yeah. Well,
So we just have to remind them. You have to remind them. This is reminding them.
love is it's hard to be in your heart when sometimes we're not in our body.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of us, we spend so much time doing social media or on computers. Nothing gets you out of your body more than the digital age.
Technology.
How can you be connected to your heart if most of your day is spent up here?
It's cerebral.
Yes. Yeah. It's important to be in our bodies so we can be in our heart.
Balance. I find it funny that the technology has gone down on Facebook today. It's gone down here. It's like, okay, the universe is talking to us.
I know. A day.
Hello.
Exactly.
We have to be humans, all the way through, heart, mind, soul, all of it, body,
Absolutely.
and not be so dependent on the technology that is and I know that I get sidetracked with it too.
Studies have shown that, especially with teenagers and people under 25, depression is rampant. Suicide rates are up.
I know.
And there is a correlation. When teenagers and young adults use social media as a means of connecting and going out and having a real connection like this, they don't get depressed. It's when they're spending hours and hours doing social media in lieu of actually having a connection.
Right.
We call them dating apps. Nobody dates on an app. You have to be in the vicinity of somebody to do that.
Right.
So we know what's going on is the brain knows that's not a connection. We can fool it.
And that's easy to be in that hopeless state
Yes.
when they're not connected when their mind is not connected to their heart.
Exactly. You can't have a really loving, secure relationship that's just digital. We're not designed for that.
No,
Not
humans.
For instance, I tell couples in the morning a 6-second kiss, because the research shows that if you can hold a kiss for 6 seconds, not this little, not that, 6 really good seconds, and when you come home at night, 6 seconds gives you both a hit of oxytocin that calms your brain, gives you, helps you, everything. Yeah. So now that doesn't happen so much with on your phone.
It doesn't happen.
Our brains are still, up until just 20 or 30 years ago, it took a real live connection, and that's what our brains need. We need real live connections. It's looking for we need touch. We need feelings. We need to hear and see each other.
And it's almost like it has to be relearned.
we just
because
might
of
do
what's
that.
been going on. I mean, I have previously dealt with a lot of millennials, and there's a lot of hopelessness in there.
Yeah.
Disengagement, and they're more robotic-like.
Yeah.
And I think, oh my gosh, they're going to have a rude awakening, because they're going to realize, oh my God, what happened,
Yeah. There is that, but there's a real ray of hope going on with the millennials. They're marrying later, and because they marry later, they're not divorcing at 50% like our generation.
Now, see, I've heard different statistics that
Yeah.
they're like.
Well, there's all
divorced.
sorts of different studies.
I know.
But
yeah.
but from what I can see when millennials come to me, they've learned more about themselves, and I think, and I also think the millennials they're learning their lessons. I mean, the way we all are, and I think I'm looking forward to seeing how every generation.
I
learns
guess
their own
because I've
lessons.
dealt with so many technology geeks.
Yep.
That's the millennials that I've dealt with the most, and it's like, oh my God! I've even said to a couple of them, "Where do you feel? How do you feel? How do you feel?" And it's like,
Now that's what you're dealing with. There is not so much millennial, but avoidant attachment. We know that avoidant attachment styles that have already toned down their emotional access because they didn't feel welcomed or worthy. So they decided to do the flight response. We know that some of the high-tech stuff, 80% of the people in Silicon Valley who are avoidant gravitate to these high-tech.
oh yeah,
Because it's way better dealing with code, and it's easier to do with code than a real flesh and life other
because they have
person.
to deal with their emotions.
We know that there have been some studies like at Boeing and Microsoft, 80% avoidant. So now
80%.
80%, because
Now, are you saying 80% of the whole population, or a different age?
80% of the people in those two companies have avoidant.
Wow.
Because who is better at doing abstract left brain code than someone who left the right brain behind? Who is able to be able to push their body 14, 16 hours a day than somebody who doesn't have a connection to their right brain? This is what avoidant attachment. It goes to the left brain rather than a fully integrated brain. So what you're dealing with here are people who have decided a long time ago it's better to not have love and not be rejected. And so so it's easier to go into code than it is to go into a living dependent relationship.
That's sad.
It is. This is why we wrote it, because, it's like I had one client, he's actually in the book. He invented something that's in everybody's, a digital device that's in everybody's use. Just put it that way, a component of it. And he comes to me and he says, good man, funny guys, intelligent, he works out, and he says, I'm on 17 dating sites, and out of 80 dates, I've been on a second date once or twice. What's up? And it's because he had such a hard time connecting. When you would talk to him, his eyes were constantly walking around like this. He had such an inability. He felt so unsafe. He was truly unwelcomed in the world, as you read in the book.
Yeah.
When we allowed him to feel welcome with joy, then he was able to settle down. And then, of course, we worked on it, and then, about a year and a half later, a couple comes in to me, and I helped them finish, because there were a few more things he needed to learn to be in a long-term, lasting relationship.
Oh, so he came back as a couple.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
And we finished the deal. He's now a very happily married man, and it's amazing.
You should feel good about that.
Oh, I do. And, it's amazing to see how differently, like he would post on Facebook, totally different than the man I knew 8 or 9 years ago, because we connected.
Yeah.
It was, and he's still just as smart, still does high tech, but now he was able to, yes,
Whole.
yes,
Wholesome.
it was safe being in his body.
Yeah.
How can you connect emotionally if you can't be in your body. That was the ticket, just helping him feel welcome. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, my goodness. So we have about 15 minutes left, so I want to give you another 5 or so minutes, so then we can give the audience a chance to ask questions.
Okay. So.
You do want to ask questions, right, audience? We need some interaction here.
Yes.
I mean, this is wonderful information, and I think it's so valuable today, especially.
Yeah.
You know. Oh goodness. So.
Yeah. You know, I wrote the book so that people would have a roadmap back to love. So many times I hear clients come in, you know, and they're bewildered by what's going on there, or if they're married or in a relationship, they're bewildered. Why can't we turn this thing around? And it's because with all the divorce rates,
Yeah.
we haven't been shown these 4 feelings so often. Sometimes, and love feels like a paradise lost to our generation. I wrote this so that people could know what it feels like to have a secure love style. And the secure are always, you know, 85, 90% of the time, they pick a right partner who will love them. Because they're using, if someone doesn't welcome them, they don't waste 2 years dating somebody that's not welcoming. They know they have the better rights. My definition of a secure relationship is when a couple is in a secure relationship, a lasting relationship. They neither give BS nor take BS because they have better rights.
Yeah, exactly.
So I wrote this so that people could know what it feels like. Unlike a lot of attachment books that give you a label, you're secure, anxious, or avoidant. I wanted to show, well, if you're anxious and secure, a lot of people who have read anything about attachment theory say, well, I've got a label and now I'm hopeless. I'm screwed. What's the road back?
There's a solution.
There's a solution, and it's 4 feelings that all of us have felt in some interaction at some time. And our brain isn't as complex as we make it. We have a right to these, it's our birthright, and we can reclaim them. And I wrote the book so that everybody who reads it knows, hey, this is my birthright. I deserve love. And it's not hopeless. It's just making a few changes. It's just making, and there's some skill sets in there too, but it's just re-enabling my brain to feel safe to love again. If we make these interior changes and we allow ourselves to feel these feelings and we give them.
And you start with yourself.
It does.
You start with yourself.
Yeah. And then we can give it to others.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or grow with another,
Yes.
you know, definitely.
And I think I'm most proud of the sections, the rights of the we. Most people, when they look at individual rights, it's about me, my right to exist, my right to have my needs met.
But we.
What about the we?
Yeah.
See, when I'm working with couples, if there's somebody there, my real client is right there between them. That's my client, the we. And if I can get them, so they're having a set of problems. My first move is to help them to stop making the partner the enemy and to make the pattern the enemy. Now they're a team and they're going after the pattern, not the partner.
It's like being a parent. You go for the behavior, not the child.
Exactly. Exactly. So the we has a right to exist.
Yeah.
The we has a right to have its needs met. The we has a right to be cherished. It has a right to be empowered. And to be honest with you, that's the thing that saves and reestablishes love between most couples. It's the we, because what I've learned over there is if you show me a couple without a we, I'll show you a war.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, once there's a we, it totally changes everything. Women get this a little more intuitively than men.
Right.
But if there's anything I'm most proud about, it's how this book will help every couple, whether you're just starting out or you're established or you've been married 25 years, how to create a we.
Yeah.
And a we
is what it's about.
It is.
With a partnership.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Exactly.
Gary, thank you for writing this book. I mean, I have gotten so much out of it. I've taken notes the whole way, and I love it. So we're coming down to asking questions and
Questions. We
And
love
answers
questions. And
from
answers.
you.
Oh my God. Let's do it.
all right. So I guess the other audience members couldn't make it. Oh well,
You know,
that's all right.
but we have some great audience.
We have a mic here. That so,
Yes.
who wants to be brave and
Well,
go?
I will go first.
Oh, good. Well, there's a mic, so we
Yes,
can
oh,
definitely
almost
hear
the
you.
right height. Hello, Dr. Salyer.
Hello.
Couple of questions. So
Okay.
obviously the book is geared to both people that are single and people that are in a couple already in a relationship.
Yes.
Which is great because it attracts to a bigger audience and can help people in multiple stages of relationships. Without giving away everything in the book, can you give a teaser or share a little bit about the techniques, tactics, or guardrails that you have in place to help people get to that place of worthiness or safety or feeling cherished with some of the things that you help people guide themselves through in the book?
That's a loaded question.
It is. And I think I know the answer there. I can still remember being at an event and somebody told somebody about this book and they said, oh no, not another book to make me wrong.
Oh,
We fear being made. The guardrail is that your brain took the best deal available. At one point in time, if it was not safe to feel worthy, whatever the pattern is, at one point, that was the best deal available. For instance, when I was dealing with my borderline mother, who was very, how should we say it, explosive, it was not safe to have your feelings. Way better to be intellectual. Way better to be in my head. You could predict a PhD because it was just, now that's the best deal available. Now, did that work with, either of my two wives? No, it didn't. But that at one point, my brain said it was way safe. Now, but I'm no longer 4 and 5 and 6. But the one day came when I could feel welcomed. Then I had a right to be in the world. I had a right to be in my body. And suddenly it's like I can be in my body. I can tell you the moment that I began to feel my feelings, it was like a blind man getting his sight. So the point is, nobody's wrong. The guardrails is it's safe to be whoever you are and know that your brain took the best deal available, and if you can just give it what it really needs, it'll take a better deal. That's the guardrail. So that nobody's wrong, everybody's right, and you can just have more of what's right in you.
did that answer your question?
Yes. Still want to hear some of the tactics. So if I was to read the book and I was to put it down, how will I be able to execute and have all those feelings? Like what's going to make me put the book down and be able to feel those things?
What's going to make you, okay, so there is some about this that, what I tried to do in the book is to describe it in a way that people could get re-familiarized with feeling that. With heartwarming stories of normal, everyday, people who reclaim that. And so that there is a village of heroes, just like you, and just like you, that are in the book, and who are actually cheering you on in the book. And, so that I also invite people in the book to a Facebook group so they can come and they can have more support, so I can answer questions online, So the way it is it's, yes, there needs to be some deep work. Sometimes it takes working with a therapist or someone who's really an expert in this. But there are and I always give people some simple exercises in the book that they can start now. Like, I always give people a little filter, like ways I can notice I'm worthy to be here. That's a filter. What if you pick that up 4 or 5 times a day for a week or two? Ways I can notice I'm worthy to be here. Then suddenly you start taking an evidence, you go, hey, wait a second. Daggone it, I do deserve to be here. And now I can feel more welcoming and I can feel more inviting. And my God, the world is a cozy place. Maybe it's safe to be in my body. Maybe
So
it's
maybe
safe.
you need to do that like a lot of times, so it really resonates in your heart to be able to really feel it.
Yeah.
You know, maybe it won't happen the first time that you're exercising it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's been my experience.
And it does take some deep work. The book was, never meant to substitute for the deep work that you might want to work with a professional. I thought I could, and I gave that go up after the first chapter. But it is a heartfelt roadmap. So when you walk away, you don't, like with a lot of books, it's a new theory of attachment. You think, oh my God, I'm anxious or avoidant, I'm screwed. This is, oh no, there's a way back. And my heart knows that way if I can just make it safe enough. So that's the guardrail. Everybody gets to be right, and we just want to notice, what good things are still going on in your life and how you can have more good things. So so it's about hope. Every sentence, I ask myself, will this paragraph give hope?
Anybody else have any questions? Please, don't be shy. Oh, we have a quiet audience.
Yeah, we have a quiet audience, and that's the seventh right, the right to be quiet.
There's a seventh right in there? I didn't hear that. I didn't read that.
Well,
That's the fifth. What do you mean?
There's a right to be quiet. So.
That's all right.
Yeah.
That's all right. Well, that was a loaded answer. A loaded question, loaded answers.
I like loaded questions because they're honest, and it's vulnerability, and I thank you for asking that question. The funny thing was when I wrote this book, I had about 30 or 40 people who were reading along with me. And the constant feedback I got was, oh my God, that one paragraph you wrote, oh my God, are you telling me that? And I had to go rewrite it. People are so afraid that the love will never be theirs, that they're scanning for ways it won't work. And all of my people told me what needed to be said in this book. I rewrote it 3 times along the way.
Interesting.
In fact, I was too...
What a growing experience for you.
Oh, it was. And so this, it's not just me sitting in my office, right? It's me in dialogue with clients and friends. Right. I had written 2 chapters, and I have a good friend in Southern California, been on a stage 4 times, a very happily married woman with a wonderful man who makes some of the best steaks you'll ever make, because I've eaten at their house, and I love this man's barbecue. Good Jim. And she calls me 2 chapters into the book and says, I'm upset with you. I go, what? She goes, how dare you write a book that doesn't speak to me because I'm a happily married woman? She goes, it can't be just about singles, Gary. Couples need to. And that's when I made a decision to buck the guy that was my branding coach and said, we are going to write about love as it is. And I kept thinking, singles stay single for about 5 dates. And then you get into couples. So I wrote it for anybody. If you've got a good relationship, to make it better. If you've never had a relationship, if you've had a history of 125 million Mr. or Ms. wrongs, in your life, this is the roadmap out. So it's road tested with real live human hearts. And I did everything I could to inspire every human heart and to protect as many of those hearts as I knew how with my words.
Because to me, that's the bottom line of humanity and relationships, is the heart.
Yes.
Yes, we have to feel intellectually challenged or, with someone, but the heart is the key.
It is. It's one woman who read the book about 6 months ago. We were at an event, and she was single, and she was saying, I don't know what's going on. She goes, just a couple of weeks ago, I thought I hit the jackpot. He was an attorney, and we found out that jackpot equals attorney or lawyer. And then she wonders why she's in bad relationships. I talked to her about these 4 feelings, and I said, would you like to be a beta reader? She read it, And within a couple of months, she's using these 4 feelings. And then comes the day she's gone out with these 2 guys. One guy is, you guessed it, an attorney. And the other guy comes in with an Hawaiian shirt. And he's a little balding, you know. But he makes her feel so worthy and cherished. For the first time, she switches from this whole thing with jackpot to what's in the real lottery of love, these 4 feelings.
The heart and not the material stuff.
So I just got a text from her saying, you know, she's been in a relationship for 6 months. It's really good. And she goes, I'm reclaiming my life one right at a time.
Good.
So
Yay.
that's the sort of thing that,
Yeah.
you know, you can do.
That's a reward that you get for putting all your blood, sweat, and tears into it.
Yes, I want everybody to know that love is their destiny, it's their birthright, and it's not as hard as we make it to be. And no matter what's been said to you out there, whether it's ghosting, or you've had terrible breakups, or you have a pattern of this or that, love is your birthright. And it can be reclaimed, and then your fate with love can be totally different. This is the roadmap.
Amen to that.
Yep.
And the higher self.
And, well, that's why we
Whatever you want to call it, universe, God, you know, the higher self. It's, to me, that's what brings it all together.
It is. I couldn't end the book without talking about higher self learning its lessons, its soul lessons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Gary, thank you so much.
Thank you, Cheryl.
For sharing this. And I mean, this is, I have to say, this surpasses all the other shows that we've done.
Well, thank you. And we have a wonderful
and I don't
friendship.
mean that as a negative for the last shows. It's just that
Yeah.
I see the growth that has happened, and it's come out. So
The book dropped me into my heart. And I want to say
Yay!
thank you for the friendship. We've been friends for a good 5 years, and thank you.
5 years. Yeah.
Yep.
I would have liked to have been part of your book, but I am now.
Yes,
So.
you certainly are.
Anyway, thank you. And thank you so much for indulging and being part of this. And bless you.
You too.
Thank you, Carl.